Hey YouTube, what's going on? This is Libertarian on Wheels, and today I'm just going to discuss some of the misconceptions I think people find with capitalism. And I think capitalism as a whole is vilified by many because the term unequal or unfair gets thrown into the discussion, and all rational conversation goes out the window in that sense. So, capitalism is it's an economic system that exists in the absence of state intervention. And it is an economic system in which the means of production are privately owned and operated. And it is also a system on another level that is based entirely on voluntary exchange and transaction, contract, etc. In other words, in a capitalist system, there's really no compulsory way of doing anything. All transactions are voluntary. Therefore, in a free market economy, supply and demand would be the membrane that keeps the economy afloat and flowing upward in a positive direction. Now, as soon as I say capitalist society, images on the Marxist end will be invoked of exploitation and starving workers and massive amounts of unnecessary wealth are being generated by these few rich dudes up here that are too busy exploiting the workers of their factory to really give a shit about the poor and all that stuff. But in a truly free market system, in a free society, as I've often said, I am an anarcho-capitalist, so I'm just banking my video here on what would probably take place in a truly free society. It would be based entirely on voluntary transactions and exchanges of goods and services for money or some other means of payment or compensation, and therefore, it's one misconception is that a capitalist system is only out to exploit people in the name of profit, and that is not true at all. Capitalism is based on, like I said, a free market economy where supply and demand are the membranes to keep the economy going. And if all transactions are voluntary, then that by definition means that there can be no compulsion and there can be no force use. And I did upload a video on liberty and the non-aggression principle last week. So feel free to have a look at that for my opinions on those concepts. But another misconception of capitalism that I've run into a lot from its opposers and detractors is that capitalism doesn't care about the poor. It doesn't care about the uneducated. It doesn't care about those who are less fortunate or whatever. Okay, I receive goods and services from a non-profit organization where I live, and its owner is a conservative and by definition a capitalist. He is an entrepreneur and he runs his company the way he sees fit for profit, but he also provides a very good service and therefore is paid for the service that he provides. It is a natural system that seems to work rather well. So, for those who assert that capitalism doesn't care about the poor, it doesn't care about those who can't care for themselves, it's simply false. Because as I've said before, all transactions are voluntary, so people choose to care for the poor. People choose to care for the uneducated and help them with education. I think I want to go over rights to it in another video, because rights only exist in a negative sense, meaning that you have the right to do what you want to do, but you do not have the right to compel others to do what you think is fit. You have a right to speech, but no one is obligated to listen. You have a right to learn, but no one is obligated to teach you. You have a right to life, but no one is obligated to treat you. You have a right to eat, but no one is obligated to feed you. All transactions, if they're going to be considered moral, they must also, by definition, they must also be voluntary. So capitalism, this idea that it's just a system out to exploit and generate wealth. No, the wealth generation is a consequence, a positive consequence of a labor, an expenditure of labor, and an expensive labor by an entrepreneur or someone. Whoever's providing the service is also feeding into the system, because they expend their labor and in the hopes of gaining something in return. So it's all voluntary, and it has a cyclical element to it that kind of keeps the economy going and keeps people happy. And in a truly free market, the poor would be better off, because of course there'd be no taxes. Right now, with the way taxes are, people are having to pay much more in taxes to subsidize Social Security, welfare, and all that. And I think the more you raise taxes, the less money people have to contribute to those charities that would take care of the poor, that would help the uneducated, that would help the sick receive better health care. And privatized health care does millions, does light years, provides light years and light years better quality health care than a government run system. And just the starkest example that I can think of off the top of my head is Obamacare. Obamacare is a government-run healthcare system that compels those who don't want insurance to get insurance through a penalty. If you do not receive, if you don't get Obamacare, you'll be penalized. And I don't care how you slice it. The minute you compel somebody to your will, or you attempt to bend someone to your will, you have taken all moral concepts out and thrown them out the window, because you're using violence to, in the same context, achieve a moral good, and that's just there's no talking to you at that point. So capitalism is not a system that exploits workers, because workers, in a truly free market, workers decide where they work. So by definition, they have to come under contract with the company, and an entrepreneur can't just start out by paying everybody $400. It's based entirely on your skill set as a worker, and it is based on, he has to start you off at some level so that he can continue to make money and keep the business going also. So, because he has to feed back into the economy. If he doesn't feed back into the economy, guess what? His business goes under, and he loses customer service if he does not provide the service at the maximum low price that he can without having an underbalance. Then he will lose customer base, and he will lose his business. So capitalism, this idea that generating wealth is a bad thing, I think is just a fundamental misconception of capitalism, because without the generation of wealth, there'd be no incentive to provide any good and service anywhere. So market economies work far more efficiently, in my view, and I'll post some links for you to just some YouTube videos that you can look at to provide much more sound insight into this than I can at this juncture. But yeah, capitalism doesn't stomp out the poor. It doesn't leave hungry people starving because it's based entirely on voluntary transaction, and people choose who they work with and who they affiliate with, and all these are choices that individuals have to make for themselves. And now I just want to take a couple of minutes to discuss some of the moral implications of living in a free society, and specifically I want to talk about, just a little off topic here, I just want to talk about, I'm a guy that is very passionate when it comes to his views, takes his relationships very seriously. I often tell people I don't really have friends as much as I have family. I have family that I work with here, that I live with here at the company that I'm a part of. I have a church family. I myself am an atheist, but I consider them family because I was involved with church for so many years. I have a biological family, of course, and so my circle is entirely family. And if you're struggling, if you're somebody out there who's struggling to find the emotional balance between, how do I help these guys? How do I help this guy? I think it's important to not allow yourself to inhabit the problems of your fellow, but to distance yourself just enough to where you don't become emotionally indifferent to their struggle, but you also don't let it consume you. And that is something that I myself am working on. And if anyone out there can suggest for me a video to watch to gain some better insight into how better to help your people out without overdoing it or going overboard or becoming emotionally weighed down by their issues, that would be great, because that is a balance that I'm struggling to find right now, and I could use all the help that I can get in that. And again, please don't forget to check out my website that I mentioned in my last video, Making a Way. That's MACON all lowercase, all together. And my friend, again, I said I've lived in the Atlanta area, and she is starting up a group home for people with special needs in her area. Please go on her website, follow that link in my last video, Liberty and the Non-Aggression Principle. It's not a link, I did not exactly embed an actual link, but if you'll just go on there and donate non-perishable foods if you can, donate some money, it doesn't matter how much, every little bit helps. She can use all the help she can get right now. That would be great. And I know that this is a all over the place video, but I just thought I would talk about some of the misconceptions about capitalism and maybe hope to steer the skeptical or cynical thinker into a more positive direction when we talk about things like values, liberty, freedom, non-aggression, and just morality as a whole. And stay tuned, because my next video is going to be a little more heavy set. We're going to go into some poetry. We're going to talk about some ideas about love and compassion and how those tie into how we relate to each other as people in our everyday lives. So with that said, it was a pleasure, guys. I look forward to your feedback. Even if you want to obliterate my video, go ahead. Please tell me how I can improve my channel, how I can improve my performance here on YouTube, and I hope to see you guys later. Peace, love, liberty, guys. Out.